Hi, I've been a bit lax in releasing videos in the last few weeks, and that's because I've been working on multiple projects at the same time, plus being a bit slow, to be fair. So I'm going to release a number of quick clips, I think, or quick videos at least, showing what I've been up to, and hopefully it will kind of come together in the end. In comes some kind of cohesive sort of storyline type of montage that tells you what I've been up to during that period. You might have noticed in some of my videos the poor state of the paint, especially on the roof. It's very pitted and flaking, and there is evidence actually of it having been resprayed, because here, for example, there's actually multiple layers of blue, and then we have finally the fiberglass layer itself, which appears to be red. Now I've been fiddling around over months actually with a scraper and so on, because I don't want to have to sand this away. It's ridiculous the amount of thickness that's here. Yeah, scraping is a thing, but I'm just going to try a bit of nitromors. Now you might wonder why I'm doing this now. Why am I doing this while I've got no windows in the car? While I'm fiddling around with the trim in the headlining. Well, the reason is because some of this paint goes behind the window robbers, and it seems a bit of a shame if I can't deal with it. So it appears to me, anyway, that back in the day they had trouble painting fiberglass. I say that because I used to have a Reliant scimitar, and that actually had something similar going on with it. Not as bad as this though. So it could be, like I say, the chemistry of the paint back in those days wasn't quite up to the job. Or their preparation was particularly poor. Anyway, let's see what this does, and I'll stop before I get too far ahead of myself. Right, a few minutes I said, and yeah, it certainly softens it. As I mentioned, I think this has been resprayed before, so as paint seems to do, it's coming off one layer at a time. So this, what we can see now, perhaps, is the original paint. What I'm just taking off is the respray. Right, second coat. Right, let's see how that goes. Covering an area kind of just about half, probably a bit more than half of the roof. Lots of it, of course, has been scraped before, which is why you've got these patches of white where it's simply been scraped with one of these. It's very brittle, and it's, as I keep saying, it's all covered in these little pock marks. which are kind of blisters that have popped, which is the same as I had on my Reliance limiter. So I don't know why it's worse. It appears to be much worse on the roof than anywhere else, which might indicate some kind of sun related. Well, it's obviously working. So the white layer is obviously some kind of primer. Well, okay, that's quite a nice pile. Do a bit more, I suppose. As you can see, I've been hard at it, and I reckon this is the last go at this particular point. And it's interesting, if that's the word. There is a kind of pattern. You see all these little lines? I had kind of hoped that that was due to the paint defects, but it does appear it goes deeper. So the question is going to be what to do about that. I've got a couple of ideas, but I'm not quite ready to decide the way forward at the moment. Considering this is the third go, or fourth go, and considering I didn't actually think there was very much left, but yeah, that's what it looks like. Well, I think that's just about as clear of paint, that is, as it's going to get for the time being. It's a hell of a lot smoother than it was before, albeit the wrong colour. I do love switching between different sub-projects, so I'm going to use a bit of 320 on this rough surface. And it is getting clogged up pretty quickly, so maybe 320 isn't coarse enough. So instead of 320, I'm trying to go for a little bit of 120. Right, I'm doing a bit more, and I'm actually using 80 grit. But it did seem to make a bit of a pig's ear of going through this paint residue. Yeah, I think I might have to reconsider my plan forward about how to deal with these cracks. It was so crazed before, it was a bit ridiculous. And of course where the cracks were, they had worked apart like that, so they were real grooves. And that's why I couldn't really put up with them. So, yeah. I think I can envisage, between you and me, because obviously I don't want to do the whole car like this, but I also don't want really to have a red roof. I can envisage actually a matte black as a temporary non-red thing, just done with a rattle can. Yeah. So this is my roof, which has changed colour considerably, which was originally kind of that colour, albeit with a horrible crazing. Then there was layers, well, 2 layers of blue, 2 layers of, I suppose, primer, some of which you can see in this blemish here. But now what we have is naked fiberglass, which is that's pretty good finish actually. It's not perfect, although maybe that's not surprising after 50 years. There's a few interesting sort of patterns on it, like this one here, which I can't feel at all. So I'm not quite sure what this pink layer is, although I'm noticing there's a kind of line here. So I don't know what that's all about. It's obviously something to do with the way it was manufactured. Maybe there was some kind of gel coat layer, and maybe it was just very, very thin. Maybe that's it. Normal gel coat is at least 1 millimetre, and this looks like being much thinner than that. This looks like repaired cracks here, but this here is not. And it might just be because it's been rubbed down a lot, I suppose. That could easily be, it was sanded right through the red layer. That's probably quite likely actually. The strange crazing, so we now have these black marks, and in general terms, every time you can see a little shadow dark mark here, it represents the place where the crazing was. Now the crazing itself is gone, and I don't know whether you can see anything there. Is there a crack? There might be a hairline, something or other. This is more significant here, I think. These streaks are just where I've wiped it down with white spirit, not white spirit, thinners. And to feel, it slightly undulates where those black marks. There's a slight undulation, whereas where it's a good red colour, it's totally smooth. I mean, I don't know. I think it compares pretty well with a steel panel, actually, a raw steel panel. It's obviously got no dents in it because that's not what happens to fiberglass. But I think I've gone as far with this. It's had a heck of a lot of rubbing down. A lot of paint stripper has been used on it, and in fact I've gone around the windscreen, certainly the top of the windscreen now, because one of the original reasons for doing this was because I want to fit the headliner and indeed the windscreen properly, which obviously if there's dodgy paint disappearing under the windscreen rubber, that would have been suboptimal. But yeah, this is my the scene of stripping where I took the final edges off. This here, by the way, that looks like there's a bit of filler, and it's right where you would expect a chip to happen, possibly being taken out the mould. So I suspect this and this were actually done in the factory. There's a bit of some, oh, that's a scratch, obviously it's been filled in. There's a few chips and things. But yeah, for 50-year-old fiberglass, that's pretty bloody good actually. It's obviously a lot better with all this horrible paint removed. And even those black marks, I literally can't feel that with my finger at all. Although I can feel a slight rippling, very, very slight though. I think it's within the realms of, you know, filling and flatting and all that business, which you normally have to do anyway when painting. And anyone who thought that, is this resin or is it gel coat, whatever, but anyone who thought it was basically the same as filler, it certainly is not, or paint, certainly is very not. It's extremely hard. So I've rubbed this with 80 grit, 120, and as soon as you get anything finer than that, it kind of ceases to do anything. So again, it's kind of equivalent to rubbing down a steel panel, I think. So I think what I'm inclined to do now is to throw some primer on it, and I don't really want a, well, it doesn't look as bad as I thought actually, a blue car with a red roof, but as a kind of experiment, because I don't know what's going to happen to these crack things, if they are cracks, I think it'd be useful to paint the roof and see what happens. And here it is after a quick rattle can prime. As you can see, this dries, stripes in it because the it's not set yet, and because probably I didn't spray it as evenly as I might have done. You can see, I think, blemishes like that, and I think those are scratches actually, but a little bit of porosity there. It may be a sign of where the gel coat layer, the red layer, was actually rubbed through and getting into the actual fibres. So that could easily be what that is. Other little blemishes are also visible, which they weren't. And the whole value of doing this is so that you can see the imperfections. We don't need to worry about flash rusting because this is fiberglass, but it does help to look at the surface with a bit more detail, and it's a heck of a lot better than it was a day or two ago when it was like literally like crazy paving, you know, with the uneven shaped pieces of stone and the sort of concrete grouting in between. It's crazed all over like that, and now it's pretty much smooth.